YouTube channel, which you can check out. And he also has an album coming out this sometime this month. So I'll go ahead and let Binyamin introduce himself and tell you more about his projects.
Oh, what's up? I wasn't told I have to introduce myself. Oh no, what do we do? Yeah. No, I've been into typology since I was like 8, which is at least 30 years ago. So,
Really?
yeah, and yeah, I got an album coming out on the 22nd, so looking forward to that.
What kind of music do you play?
Uh, all kinds, I guess. Yeah,
All
it's a
kinds.
mix. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. What do you play? Do you sing or guitar?
Yeah,
Say guitar to back.
sing, it's a electronic, banjo, fiddle, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. Is it like solo thing or is it with like a band?
It's under a band name, but right now it's more solo. Like I recruited some people off of like Fiverr and stuff to record parts, but other than
Oh,
that, yeah.
very cool. All right. Yeah, I'll definitely have the links for that so you guys can check that out. I think it comes out the 22nd, you said, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Okay. And how did you get introduced to type so early? How did that come about?
My dad typed me when I was 8. Yeah.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah. He set
What
me
type
down in
of
front of a test. I thought I was in trouble, so I answered everything like a good kid, and I came out ISTJ.
ISTJ, really?
Yeah.
And you're actually an ISTP, correct?
Yeah, yeah, ISTP. Yeah.
So the test was wrong, but you're 8, so I guess.
Well, and also I thought I was in trouble and I was answering
Oh,
questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's
What
like
type was he?
he's an INTP.
INTP.
Yeah.
Interesting.
TI clash.
No, yeah, that happened a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So what's it been like being an ISTP in your experience?
Wow. Yeah, I don't really have another experience, but I think I'm just not allowed to guess at things. I just sort of take things for as they're presented to me, and I always think that things can go in any which direction. Like there's I don't see I don't naturally see an end to something the way things are going to go, because it could go in any way. Um, but if you were to ask me to guess, I probably would know, but I'm just not aware of what direction things are going in. I don't know if that makes sense to you from the way you see it.
Yeah, that sounds like a kind of a scary way to live in my eyes, I guess, but that's pretty big an SE thing, a high SE thing. Just why
Right.
make plans because you don't know what's gonna wreck it. So you might as well keep things open.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Very cool. So I just like to talk about the functions here in a bit. So how's TI? I know you said like you pretty much have to make sure that everything is correct. And you elaborate anything more on how that is?
Yeah, I probably said that somewhere. Yeah, at the basic fundamental level, I see TI as just sort of figuring out where contradictions are and trying to resolve contradictions in a very I don't know, thorough way, like one after another sort of thing. Um, and yeah, I do identify a little bit with the archetype of the hero for the TI, because it really feels like that function is the hero in my life. Like it feels like that's where my consciousness is. So yeah.
Does it ever frustrate you with TE users when they kind of just come to a conclusion real quick without really checking into it much? Or
So I naturally assume that they do check into it. Like I'm not really aware that they're really just bullshitting a lot of the time. Um, and to be fair, a lot of the time they do their work, but I think their natural yeah, inclination is just to just throw something at the wall, just try something. And yeah, it gets overwhelming as well. And I think it also frustrates them that TI wants to go so I don't know, thoroughly over things, make sure everything is completely correct.
Yeah, I think I kind of have a habit of that too, or just like, well, if I just try something and it doesn't work, I could always just try something else. I don't know.
Right.
Has there ever been a? I know you said you clashed a lot with your dad. I know, like I seen like INTPs together, and they're like, "No, I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm the smartest person in the room." And they kind of argue back and forth. Was that like a similar relationship, or was it like kind of like your introspection versus his?
Yeah, I definitely never got the feeling that I was I don't know, that I was smarter than him because I was just younger than him by a lot. Um, but yeah, there was always some kind of like ego thing going on where yeah, there was a, you know, kind of like a dance, like here's my ego, here's your ego, let's butt heads on what's true and what's right and argue and stuff like that. Yeah.
Very cool. What type was your mom, out of curiosity, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, that's a tough one. She was typed as an ISTJ by my dad, but I think she could be more on the ESFP side of things.
Really, that's a pretty big
Yeah.
it's a pretty big contrast there.
She definitely has TE high, whatever it is. Yeah.
And their relationship was pretty good. Was there any conflict with that?
Um yeah, I guess there's conflicts a little bit with like advice giving that TE sometimes does, where like sometimes the type of advice that people give is just naturally insulting. And so I think there was a little bit of a conflict there where it's like, yeah, it's just generally TE giving advice. Sometimes it's just bad advice to take. And I don't know how aware you guys are of that, how sometimes it's bad advice what you guys are giving, or it's just like something you're throwing out. I don't know.
What do you mean exactly? How's it bad? It just like isn't thoroughly thought through. It's just kind of like, here's an idea, just try that.
Yeah.
You're gonna go with
Yeah,
it.
just try that. It's like, yeah, if I were to do that, that wouldn't turn out right. Like, did you even think this advice through before you opened your mouth, sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's just kind of like, if your mom, like you said, ESFP, she's just kind of going off feeling, you think?
She had TE
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
high. Yeah.
for sure. Okay, yeah, because like I kind of get like that too with my NI. I'm like sitting there thinking like that solution. I mean, I don't like that doesn't really line up for me as very well.
Right.
And all right, so how about SE? How's that look for you? SE parent, SE father, mother.
Yeah. SE isn't really something that I noticed, but I've been noticing it more, um, since I've been paying attention, I guess, where it's really just comparing sensory. It's doing a lot of comparisons, knowing, comparing what's higher, what's smaller, what's more red, what's less red. It's just it feels brainless. It's just a perception thing where it's like, yeah, I just kind of know what's better and what's less good in a sensory fashion.
I know there's a lot of theories about the second function, like it comes later in life, and a lot of people don't like to use it. Or there's like the jumper theory that objective
Right.
personality has. Did it kind of come later in life for you, or did you always prefer to use your first and third function?
So in terms of a function, everyone has a sensory function. We all need to process sensory information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I think SE is just it's a less personal function. It's we don't I don't take it as seriously as, depending on the situation, but I don't take it like the be all end all. Like I'm aware that my everything's an illusion. Like there's no actual thing of as a color. Or there's sound is just a wave that's vibrating our ears and things like this. So so on the one hand, you're aware that it's just like this illusion that you're receiving, but you have to process it in order to get along with the world. So yeah, I wasn't particularly into sports or anything in particular, but yeah, just taking in the sensory, and the part you do take seriously is that is something real or not real? I think like I notice it a lot in like movies and things where it's like, oh, that's not realistic, and I will just dismiss the movie because it's not realistic, right? That's
Yeah,
my SE being like, yeah, it doesn't match. There's something not matching here.
cool. And when did you start doing music? I'm sure that's been a pretty big SE experience for you.
Yeah, music was kind of always in my life. Like I remember I had like a piano teacher. Everyone you seemed to think I had like this really big talent, natural talent, and I just sort of dismissed it. Like I didn't really care about it as much as maybe someone with FI, or I don't know. For some reason, I didn't care about it, and I was dismissing it. I was always in it, but never really all about it. You know?
It just kind of came naturally to you, and it's just like whatever, just another skill.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't like reading music or music theory. I just it's less, I less interacted with it on a theory level, more with a just like a sensory level. Yeah.
Going back to TI a bit, how would you compare your TI to your father's? He's an INTP.
I mean, I don't think there's much of a difference between our TIs.
No,
Yeah. I think TI is essentially doing the same thing. Yeah.
so you don't think it compares like looking at it through like an SE lens predominantly, or how he uses like an NE lens where it's kind of more abstract?
Right. So I was seeing a lot more the clash between SI and SE
Hmm.
rather than NE and SE in the way that he had specific ways of doing things, specific ways of like I don't know, just very organized in the sensory world. And I didn't like that. I like the freedom. I like the, don't control me with the sensory.
Yeah, it's a very interesting
Yeah.
way of putting it. I do judo, and I was introduced by an INTP of all types, and he was just very
Right.
safety focused, very take your time, repetition, and
Right.
kind of like
Yeah,
that.
that's a
Yeah.
good one. Martial arts. There's like the Karate Kid thing where like the Karate Kid is a very SI way of learning martial arts.
Hmm.
Whereas like you see the other side, it's a very SE way of doing martial arts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of like just learn it and kind of, I don't know, it's just more an aggressive standpoint, I think, too, and kind of just do it or die sort of attitude rather than
Right.
like a choreography repetition way.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you done any martial arts or anything like that?
A little bit, yeah. I was
Very cool.
involved in some, yeah.
Very cool. And you're in Israel right now. Any Krav Maga or anything like that?
In the army, we learned basic martial arts and stuff, yeah.
Oh, cool. You were in the army then.
Yeah.
Is that a mandatory thing for like young people there, or is that like
Yeah.
just encouraged?
Yeah, it's mandatory. There are ways to get out of it. There's exceptions and things, but overall it's just mandatory. Yeah. If you're in a country, I guess, where you're under threat of attack, you need to know that you can help defend the country if you need it.
Yeah,
So
kind of right there in the Middle East and
yeah,
everything like that.
yeah.
I took some like early Jewish history classes and stuff in school. So
Okay.
I was a religious studies major. Is that why you're there for religious purposes, or you said you're originally from Canada?
Yeah, and I came here on an internship actually from university, and then I just got stuck.
Got stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, we could say religious. Yeah.
How's it like there?
Um Compared to Canada, yeah, it's the people are a lot more in a hurry, I think, a lot more um aggressive to fight for what's theirs. Um the the state itself has a lot more bureaucracy, weirdly enough, and it's a weird clash of like very strong SE and very strong SI. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because there's lots of procedures and there's a lot like the police have a lot of power, things like this. Yeah.
But they need that SE to get shit done, right? Because they're in the middle of a war zone, more or less.
Right. And then yeah, there's also, even though there is the bureaucracy, if you know how to talk and know who to talk to, you can connive your way into budding lines and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of like a mix between civilized and barbaric.
It's interesting. I was always
Yeah.
curious about going there.
Yeah. When tourist industry opens up again, it's an interesting place to visit for sure.
Yeah. All right, we got off topic here a little bit. How
Sure.
about your NI child? Always found that interesting with ISTPs and ISFPs. How's that kind of manifested for you?
Yeah. I'm really careful with how I grow my NI, with what kinds of NIs I build, because if I make it, it takes a lot of work to make a proper NI, and if I made a bad one, then it could really I don't know, make things not go right for me, and I won't notice it until I won't notice the bad pattern until a few repetitions, I guess.
Is that always a
Um,
clash? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
no, yeah, go ahead.
Is that always like a clash with your SE? Like whatever, just kind of throw it all caution to the wind. I'm just going to see what happens. I know ESTPs and
Yeah,
ESFPs are pretty bad about that.
yeah. So for me, it's less so. They are more balanced than the than an ESTP or an ESFP. Um, I'm always trying to make sure they're matching. I guess that's what the TI is doing fundamentally, trying to match the two and process the contradictions between them. Um, and so yeah, I'll come to realizations and conclusions just like everyone else, but just um, I need to know it's backed up by the sensory. Like the sensory has to be first. It has to prove the NI.
Oh, like if somebody, because I had a real close ISTP friend, but he was always kind of like a closet intuitive. It seemed like that. We weren't really into typology or anything back then, but like I would talk to my INTP friend and we would just talk about these weird theories and stuff. And he just like wanting to get involved with it, but he just didn't quite grasp it. It seemed like the hell you guys talking about?
Right.
It's not real.
Yeah, I don't feel like I have a hard time grasping. I just have a hard time trusting, I guess. If it's too intuitively out there and it doesn't, if we're jumping steps too quickly, then it's, I feel like we're, I don't know, fudging proof. Like, you know how in mathematics you have proof lines, you have to prove one thing after the next. And if
Mhm.
you jump too many lines at once, you don't know, you kind of want to take it slow when you're jumping. Like you don't want to jump too much, make too big of an intuitive leap, you know?
Mhm.
That's more of what it is.
Yeah, that's probably always been my struggle in math. It's just been so it's supposed to be like a high TE kind of process, but I never really cared for it much. I never really stepped in. Was very thorough with it. I just kind of like would rush through it and get to the point. Like, I don't know.
Right.
It was like school. Like if it's not applied to something directly, it's hard for me to learn it, I guess. But if it's like applied to something where it's practical or I'm going to need it, then I can learn it. But
Yeah.
just teach me algebra
Yeah.
for the sake of algebra is kind of like, why are we doing this?
Yeah. So like solving math problems, no problem jumping. But if you actually wanted to give forward a proof so that someone else could follow you, like that's kind of what the sensory is. It's like, I'm gonna have to prove this. I need all of I need to tell people how I came to this conclusion. Right. It's not enough for me just to give the conclusion.
I know that what I think I heard something that you might be an engineer. Am I correct about
Right.
that?
Yeah. Engineering physics. Yeah.
So you have to be pretty creative and with that, right? Kind of like think outside the box.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know an ISTP, he's a engineer at Raytheon, so that's pretty interesting.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I liked engineering. I liked physics more. Um, and then there were some fun projects in engineering. Yeah, you get to be creative for sure.
What do you do? Do you still have a day job or are you kind of relying on YouTube right now?
No, I'm not making much on YouTube. Day job, I'm an engineer by trade as well. Yeah.
What kind of engineer?
Today I'm more like I work more in a lab, less less innovative things, more procedural things in a lab,
Very cool.
all
I thought
kinds
about
of
going.
testing methods. I was brought there for gamma spectroscopy to begin with as well. So
Yeah, I have no clue what that is.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought about going to civil engineering, but I just didn't want to deal with all the math, so I didn't.
Yeah, smart choice.
Yeah, pretty big commitment, it sounds like. And what about your FE inferior? I always thought this was kind of odd and interesting with INPs or ITPs.
Yeah, I have no inkling of what social nuances are, right? I'm and I guess by nature, like if TI is the hero in the BB model, so then like the villain would be FE, but not my FE. It would be like everyone else's. Like that's where I would place the blame on. That's um yeah. It's definitely a journey to figure out those social nuances, to figure out what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, how people are feeling, how what you say influences them, how um, knowing what people value, what's important to people, and even just processing your own feelings, getting to some kind of conclusion about what's bothering you. Yeah.
You ever like feel on edge about making people feel bad about stepping on their toes or anything like that? And
Yeah, it's constantly a weight on my head, like, oh, like I'm constantly suspicious. I like to talk about it as if it's like there's guardrails. If you go to tourist sites and stuff, there's like guardrails, don't get too close to the edge.
mhm.
So it's like I don't know where those guardrails is. I don't know where the edge is. And I'll notice this when I see people with FE first or whatever. I'd get all nervous because they are getting too close to the edge. And it's like you're not afraid you're gonna fall. And for them, they're just confident. They're like, no, this isn't falling yet, right?
Do you ever get frustrated when they make just like this ethical choice, like based off like the well-being of everybody else, and they kind of just throw any ration or any logic out the window?
Um, I wouldn't say frustration. I would say more oppressed when that happens. Um, because like dismissing that and disregarding that for me is where I'm insecure, where I don't know what's happening. So if someone was to be like, no, this is for the good of everybody, I couldn't argue with that. I would have to go along. So it feels very oppressing, I guess.
That you're kind of subordinate to that feeling, that urge?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of subordinate. I can't argue. You can't argue with that, right? You have no reasons. Like if I had reasons, I could at least fight. I could at least find a contradiction. But like it's not reason talk. It's value talk. And I have I have no dog in that fight. I have no way to even process that. Right.
That's because of FI demon, you think, or what's the reason behind that? Because I have no issue doing that. Probably what's kind of kicked me in the ass all these years.
Yeah. Um yeah, it's just a blindness. It's like it's there. You know something's there. It's just you don't have like when you're in the shower or something, you turn the water on too hot and then you turn
Mhm.
it back and it goes way too cold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that thing. It's like, okay, how do I find the balance here? Like it's either too hot or too cold and I've got to turn it and wait, find that control, find that place where, and usually in the social spectrum, it's too late. Like it feels like it's too late. Oh, I already went too hot. Okay, now I went too cold.
There's no coming back from it.
Yeah.
How have you developed that over the years? I know like ISTPs and INTPs, they can be kind of like INTJs are by default, basically. But once they kind of get over that insecurity, they're actually pretty jolly and jovial.
Yeah. So for me, the first stage was to try and systematize it, find some kind of system to navigate it. And then once you have a system, you're at least able to lean on that system. Like trying to think of a good analogy. But it's like once you have the system, you can at least leave the house. You can at least go out there and navigate things a little bit. and feel safe. And so then after that, you can start trying to see what works and what doesn't work and add your system and develop your system. But it's always some kind of system. It's never like a natural feeling like that you've got it, right? And it gets more and more natural the more you practice at it, but it's still something that you rely somewhat on whatever system you've figured out.
Being introduced to typology at such a young age, has that been a buffer for that? Has it been helpful? Where you kind of like, I just tested this and forgot it for years?
I think it was probably not helpful for TI because it seemed very systematic as well. So it's like, okay, maybe I can use this to navigate the FE, the people. Like I'll just type them first and then know how to interact with them, and it just doesn't work like that. Like that's not a good system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because in the meantime,
A good system, a good system is one that you can use as broadly as possible. So it doesn't matter what their type is, it would still work. And this is a system, like trying to figure out this system is like, okay, you got another type person. If you're wrong about their type, then you screwed up.
So you haven't used typology as like a way of communicating with people. It's just what kind of systems have you used? It's just kind of like something you kind of came up with, like an intuitive process, or
Yeah. So I think my first big one was just realizing that we all have these animalistic impulses, these animalistic urges, and trying to pinpoint what those are, and where they came from on an evolutionary side of things. Like how did we get to these animalistic um, behaviors? And so the first one that really sort of saved my life was understanding what the idea of an alpha is, like an alpha male is in human civilization, and how like in nature alpha males work, and how we're all just competing and butting heads to try to rise to the top. And if someone sees you as competition, if someone sees you as trying to rise to the top, then they will battle it with you. And for me, I was accidentally causing those provocations and causing those battles over and over again and getting myself into a lot of trouble, and just realizing that's what I was doing and just backing off, saying, okay, I'm going to try not to have these battles. I'm doing it without knowing them. So I'm going to consciously not do them, consciously be more submissive or more avoidant of these kind of conflicts.
so kind of like
Yeah.
when to stay in and when to walk away, sort of thing, like choose your own battles.
Yeah. And also knowing what provokes people and things like this, what provokes people into these battles. And it's always the same thing. It's always like, it's always you're putting yourself above them in some way, or you're putting them down, or you're threatening their place on the hierarchy. I think it's always to do with the hierarchy.
That's really like more of a TESI sort of thing, like having, I guess, a social hierarchy. So you don't think like you could piss one type off and piss a different type off totally different way?
I think the core that it comes down to is there is a hierarchy, like in human civilization and in
Mm-hmm.
animal civilization, whatever, there is a hierarchy, and it's very basic. It's very animalistic. It's not something that people are aware of. And just being aware that this hierarchy exists, it's like it's more primordial than personality. Basically, what I've found, at least.
Just like deeper ingrained in our psyche, some for
Exactly. Yeah, it's more in the lizard brain area.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the shadow functions. John Beebe called it the opposing personality that goes against your hero function. So how has TE kind of mirrored your TI?
So it's also how am I interpreting TE, but I guess TE is just seeing this spectrum of ideas in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like as I grow my TI more and more, I can see my own TI and put my own TI in some kind of spectrum, some kind of um yeah. Like if I try something enough, I'll get enough different ideas. Another way to do it is just slow down. Like I could TE is fast, right? And
Mm-hmm.
but I can do the TE if I've got time. So if I slow things down, I can get to the TE. I can I don't know, go and learn from a YouTube channel or from all kinds of different things like that. Trial and error is a big one.
So if you're presented with a lot of information, like does it ever get overwhelming or frustrating for you if you kind of have to make a snap decision?
No,
Your SE just kind of kicks in and says, okay, we're just going to wing it and see what happens.
I think I've developed my intuition to a point where there's not a lot of new situations that I'm encountering.
Mm-hmm.
So when you actually do have to process something, it's when there is a new situation, when something unexpected is happening, something you've never seen before. And as you go through life more and more, you would expect like you to have less and less surprises. You've seen more and more things, right?
Yeah.
Um, so not a lot surprises me anymore, but I think when it does surprise me, I trust my TI. My TI is a hero, I guess, in a way. So I trust that to be able to just make a decision really quick and figure out the best solution.
I know this could be a problem for INTPs more. I don't know. I haven't asked too many ISTPs. You ever thought about like people like they're stupid, other people are kind of dumb?
Uh, I still have a hard time accepting that people are as stupid as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, and then the one thing is like people's intelligence seem to be go down as the group gets larger and larger. They just seem to have more and more groupthink, and
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely something that I see a lot as well. Um, and yeah, for me, it's like if someone is like really bad at processing things and making good conclusions, I don't feel like I can trust them.
So just
Yeah.
like people with a group of people and they're just kind of getting emotional and like they kind of come to consensus of vote of hands. That's not a very comforting
So
experience for you.
so actually the thinkers I've found are the more emotional people in the world. Like they lose they're unprocessed on their emotions. So they're more controlled by their emotions. They're less the feelers are a lot more in control of their emotions. They're less emotional, I would say.
Right.
But they do lean on value decisions. So for me, it's like where do you want to go eat? I don't care. I don't have a value here. I don't like one food over another. I'll just put something in my mouth and let's move on. Like it's not such a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but when I do see, usually it's people just that just don't process things all the way through, or just make wild guesses. Like intuitives a lot trigger me as well because they'll make wild guesses and they'll be wrong, and they don't care. Like, okay, I'll be wrong. Like, I'll just make another guess, right? But
Mm-hmm.
for me, when you make a guess, you'd better be right, right?
So what happens if you make a guess and you're wrong? Does that ever
I
happen?
beat myself up for years. Yeah.
Yes, years.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you're just kind of forced to make a guess. Like if you're under the gun and just have to make a decision, right?
Yeah, but it's never a guess. It's always the best decision given the known information that you have.
So do you feel like you make decisions pretty quick, or do you have to sit on it for a while if given an opportunity?
Depends on the decision. Um, my impulse is to make snap decisions, and I guess everyone's is just to make quick decisions. And it takes willpower to just slow yourself down, say no, I don't have to decide now, I can sleep on it, like that kind of thing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, and what about your cynics function? That would be your SI. How's SI? I know you said it's in Israel, it's a big clash between SE and SI. So usually SI seems to
Yeah.
win out.
So I don't have any kind of, I don't know, procedural way of operating.
Hmm.
I do develop, I guess, at work because we are in a lab and we do have procedures that we have to follow. And I have to be aware of those procedures and teach those procedures. Like if so I would be writing procedures a lot as well. So but for me that's more, it's more SE. Like it's not something that, it's something that I'm writing. It's something that I'm actively doing and I'm updating and changing and making sure it's right. Um, like in the morning, I don't know if I'm putting on my shoes first or last. I don't even think about that. I don't know when, if I'm eating, I don't know if I'm going, I'm just like, what am I doing now? Like, what is the next step? Not what are all of the steps?
Yeah. I know a lot of ISTPs have trouble at school and stuff, at least early on. I mean, it's not that they're not intelligent enough to do it, of course. Did you have trouble with that procedure and that structure as a kid?
Yeah, I absolutely hated school. Yeah.
Okay. And what about like taking care of yourself? I know SI can kind of be like the self-care function, and I guess FI can be too. Has that been an issue for you? Kind of like, I'm just gonna do this and I
Yeah,
don't care if it's not.
I personally don't even track taking care of myself. I think SE is good because it like, let's say nutrition, for example. So really the keystone of nutrition, if you wanted to look at it from like an SI way of looking at it, is like you need to get all of the different kinds of vitamins and proteins and amino acids, right? You need
Mhm.
all of that. But SC on its own is just gets bored if it eats too much of one thing. So you're automatically doing the variety in the sensory. You're automatically trying to have all different kinds of foods. And that ends up being healthy, right? Without even thinking about it. So I think that's kind of what SE is doing. I don't really have to worry too much about my health because I'm naturally doing the variety side of things.
I have that problem. I think it's pretty hard with an American diet because it's just junk food. It's just loaded in front of you
Right.
everywhere. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's something, my weight and my diet, something I definitely have something I struggle with. I tried eating like rice, chicken, and veggies every day, but I just got so burnt out on it.
Right. Yeah. And like, I don't know, I cut out sugar um, just because you have to limit your sensory as well, what you're taking in sometimes.
Hmm.
SE is not only about what you want and what you're taking in, but it's also more about what you're rejecting. Um, even in terms of information, it's like, what am I not letting into my head? What is garbage that I don't want to pollute my thoughts? Right.
My STP friend, he wouldn't drink water. He would just drink coffee loaded with sugar and Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't think about our health. I don't think about my health. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. What about the trickster function, NE? How's that work for you?
I personally honestly do not have any use for any. I can do everything I need to do without even looking at any doesn't seem like a solution. It doesn't seem like something good or something bad to me. It's just something that is there. It's I one thing about any that is useful that I'm not doing at all is tracking people's intentions, tracking what they mean or what's behind their words, or yeah, something beyond what you just take at face value, right? So I'm not doing that. I'm not seeing, oh, he probably is saying that because he has this desire or he has this or he has, like, I'm just taking things at face value.
So like it's just not a possibility, like, or not, doesn't really bother you, like somebody might like trying to rip you off or anything like that, or trying to cajole you or anything like that into something. You don't really think
Right.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not seeing what the most likely into it. Like I'm not seeing all of the possibilities and saying, okay, this is the most likely, this is the second most likely. I'm not comparing them in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just kind of jump to conclusions and assume that everybody's out to get me. That's kind of my approach to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know with like my FE, it's my FE trickster. It's a huge burden on my life, and it sounds like, I think that's kind of like how INTJs and I guess ISTPs and INTPs kind of relate, because like what you said about FE inferior kind of felt like FE trickster for me, except I just have no clue how to navigate that field really. So
Right.
the inferior function is more of a hindrance than the trickster function, you would say.
I would say the inferior function is a hindrance because you're just completely blind to it. Um, the trickster function. So for me personally, the any trickster function is something that I'm probably even more blind to it, but it's not a problem for me. It's like you okay, so let's say you're blind to the FE. It's not something that should be problematic to you because you have your FI, you have your TE. There's no, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, it's just like I don't know if I'm like upsetting somebody, if I'm pissing somebody off. I just want to do my own thing. I don't care what the group collective values are. It
Right.
just doesn't make any sense to me. So I just go do my own thing, and that's kind of
But you
like,
know how you feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's like an emotional standpoint, yeah, but like,
You know
am
what's
not,
important to you.
yeah, that's exactly what it is for me. But
Right.
it,
Yeah, you don't need to know what's important to everyone else because you know what's important to you. I don't
it
know
would,
what's important to me, and I don't know what's important to everyone else.
oh yeah, it's kind of a double whammy there, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like, I guess I'm childish with the way I feel and with way what my values are. I could be like over idealistic, and that could rub people the wrong way, I guess. And
Right.
like if I want to do my own thing and it totally goes against the social norms, and that's kind of like my head's on a chopping block, I guess. How kind of how I see it.
Yeah. I see a lot of INTJs just learn how to fake FE really well. Um, and when it's like a relief for them when they don't have to, when they get to know somebody in a way that they don't no longer have to fake it, they could just connect on the FIs at least.
That's just something that my FI can't do. I can't be somebody I'm not. I can't just fake it. I mean, it nauseates me really. All right. And how
Yeah.
did you? Oh, go ahead.
Good. No, sorry.
You're fine. Just if you had to finish that thought, no worries. I was going to ask you about your FI demon. I know that could be very like my ISTP friend. Like, I'm not going to the doctor. Screw that. He didn't like doctors and stuff like that, and just didn't really care about your health, like you said. How's that kind of? You don't have your own importance. Like I was talking about the music, you're like, I just play whatever. I just play what kind of whatever comes to mind. Or
Yeah. I don't have something that's more important, something that's my favorite. That like I remember in school when I was younger, like you have the little kids like, oh, red is my favorite color. No, I like blue, and I'm like, I don't know. I like all the colors. I don't know what color is better. Like they're all just colors. Like why does one have to have a higher value than another? Didn't make sense to me. And the same thing with like cars or with like doesn't matter what it is. There's if it works better or if it's like I don't know if it's cooler. Like I can track FE is tracking like what's the coolest or whatever, right? So like that I can track, but what I like better, no idea.
a lot of people use like music for like emotional expression, kind of like a coping mechanism. So that's nothing for you. Just kind of like
No,
the
yeah, it is. It is. And I think writing as well is useful. What I've found really useful is if you can find an FI user who's been through a similar situation and just listen to them, how they've processed it, how they've moved on. Um, it's like it's like gold because it's already processed. You don't have to put in the work to process it.
yeah. Okay.
But it takes a lot to see that. Like it took me a long time to actually see that it because I'm not even looking there. I don't even care. Like feelings, processing them, like who cares? Why even bother processing feelings? Like just leave them alone, right? That's my natural tendency. Like they just are.
I always kind of wondered, like I had an ISTP friend, like I mentioned, and they would kind of like drag me out the bars sometimes and stuff. It's not really my thing, but it would be so frustrating. He would just sit there and women would just like flock towards him.
Oh,
And I don't know if that was just maybe like a lack of FI, possibly just kind of going with the flow, or I don't know. Has that been a similar experience for you? I don't know if you're married or nothing. I don't want to get you in trouble.
um, I think like it's hard to see the world as an at least as an IP from like the perspective of others, but like my subjective experience is I still have struggles with women and finding women, approaching women, knowing which woman to approach and which woman not to approach. So it's a lot easier just to be like, just stay out of it, not even bother. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess the more there's also like a game that men and women play with each other. So like there is a way to systematize it as well, and just like see the game and understand the game and how to win the game, how to fail the game, like what. And just like the more I learn about it, the more I hate the game itself, and the more I realize like I don't want to play this. Like it's not even worth it. I just want to find some, like, I know it's dumb, but like I just want to find some way to not play this. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel a similar way. I guess that's the FE there, the camaraderie with the having low
Right.
FE. All right. So let's talk about your YouTube channel. What is like your mission? What's your purpose for that?
Yeah. It started out me just, having ideas, and just recording them, like just recording them, getting them down so that I can move on and think about something new.
Like a vlog sort of
Um,
thing?
yeah. Yeah. But really only after I've processed it for a few years
No.
and then just do. So yeah. So that's what my older videos were. And then I came into the typology space, and like what you're doing right now with the interviews, that really wasn't happening back then. When I,
Hmm.
like, we're talking 3 years ago about. And then I started seeing objective personality. All these people are typed, and it's like their system's interesting, right? Like this is all intuitive land, right? It's all not real. Like I've got to see if it's actually real, right? And so the interviews for me was a way to double check, like, does the theory match reality? Is there even such a thing as cognitive functions? Like, yeah, what's going on with that? So a lot of it is also just trying to double check, trying to verify, like, these people were typed. Are they this type? Can they display this type? Can I see this type? Right. So it was really just a way for me to, yeah, a way for me to learn typology from reality rather than theory.
Yeah, I was always interested in sensors that were in a typology because it's like psychology in general, just very abstract. It's not like you cut someone's brain open and pull out the schizophrenia and you're cured. It's kind of
Yeah.
nothing is tangible, really. It's just all out there. So you do see the patterns and you do kind of confirm, like, yeah, this person's an ISFJ or whatever type.
Yeah. I do see the patterns. I don't always believe them, but I do see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just kind of like you confirming that. What are your dad? How did he get into that? And was he like super nerded out about that your whole life, or was it kind of
Yeah. He
like
was super nerded out about that. Yeah. Yeah.
what systems do you use? I know you said objective personality. Is there any other systems that you kind of use? Do you do typings or?
Yeah. So I've got typing teams that, basically after you get a YouTube channel, people reach out to you and want to get typed. Like that's just what happens. Especially if it gets big enough, right? And so like I don't have much confidence in my ability to type people because like it's not easy to type people.
Mm,
Even if you are trained and certified and you think you're good, you probably aren't, right? It takes a long time to actually see the functions in someone and confirm their type. So I needed to find a way to give people, like, rather than saying no to people, which people don't like, um, I found a way to try to type them as accurately as I could, at least say that like I put in the effort, right? And so yeah, I started with typing teams where on each team you've got an IP, an EJ, um, an IJ, and an EP. So you've got all four of the temperaments, and then all of the quadras, like the socionic quadras. So I'm the beta on my team, and I'm the IP on my team, and then we've got a alpha and a gamma and a delta.
interesting. So it's almost like you're coming to a TE conclusion there, kind of like getting consensus and.
Sort of. The other thing is it's kind of like a tool too, because like it's like you give a hammer to a monkey, he doesn't know how to use it, right? You give a wrench to a monkey, he'll maybe even try to use it as a hammer, right? It's like it takes a while to learn that tool, and I feel like it is a tool to have a team because you're all looking at, it's like you're the four corners of a map, and then you could say, and you can sort of triangulate off of each other, where is this person on this map?
All right. And what if you guys come to a tie? How does that, has that ever happened? Like your team is split and how do you make a decision?
Yeah, so the method, okay, so we're up to 8 teams now, I think. Yeah. So we have 8 teams. The method that our team uses that works best for us is just like, okay, we're each independently typing, and now we come to the board and then we throw that type out. We're gonna look at the person fresh, and we're gonna watch their video, make a perception. Like different people will be able to pick out different things, right? Because when something's weird to you, it's not weird to everybody, and that's also information, right? So we have an NE person on my team, and we were all saying, this is weird, this is weird. He's like, no, that's normal. What are you talking about? What are you guys even seeing? Like, why are you stopping the video so often? Right? And it's like, oh, because it's NE. It's weird for all of us, but for him it wasn't weird, right? And so it's
Patterns just
like,
natural.
it's right, because we're always projecting on people. We're just projecting our own functions onto them. So whatever's weird is when they're not doing our functions. And so it's
Mhm.
so it's really hard to catch those. It's really hard to even see them. So even just on the perception level, it's useful having all of those functions there to be calling out, that's something I don't do. That's something that's foreign to me, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of see it. I just pick up on the patterns and it's all quite cyclical. And I just kind of like, okay, he keeps repeating this pattern over and over. And that's kind of how I do it. And I kind of bounce off with different theories and stuff as well.
Right.
But I really don't offer any typing services. I'll kind of like just talk to somebody for a while and type them, and I'll be pretty comfortable with that for the most part. But
Yeah.
nobody's ever 100%, of course. All right, I want to bring this thing home. I know you said you don't have no FI, you don't really have favorites. Do you have a type that kind of triggers you the most, or a type that you kind of get along with the best, or does it vary?
I think I have the most fun with ENFPs just because they're so different from me. They're using all different functions.
Hmm.
And I just have fun poking at them, messing with them, because they're also like the traditional trolls that mess with other people. Um, and and so I guess they like messing with me, and I like messing with them. It's just a very different way to, yeah, it's a different way to process the world completely.
Yeah, for sure. I like getting any DOMs and kind of picking their brains.
Right.
They're just
Yeah.
all over the place. And is there a problematic type for you?
Um, I think just the most problematic type is someone who's just stuck in their type. Like it's pretty obvious that being a type is not a good thing. Like being a type just means I'm like, this is how I'm screwed up in my head. This is how I messed up. Here, look, I'm too intuitive. I'm not balanced here. I'm not balanced here. Right. So like obviously me being an ISTP, it really just means that my FE sucks. Like I'm leaning too much onto my TI. I'm making bad decisions overall for my life path because I'm doing whatever is like true and accurate and logical, and not considering the feelings of others, not considering the perspective of others, right?
I kind of had the opposite experience, like finding out like an INTJ and what I'm bad at and why I'm bad at it, and kind of like it gave me a system to correct it because I have no social compass to navigate really.
Right.
It's been very beneficial for me, and I still kind of see where I need to make progress at, but that's probably just the kind of way we perceive things differently, I guess.
Yeah. So to project onto you, it would be the SE that is the most difficult for you, the most harmful, what you're ignoring and not seeing.
Yeah, in a way, I think like the judo and stuff, that's definitely helped that, and even getting on camera and talking and stuff like that, that was petrifying at one point for me.
Right.
But still, the FE and the SI is the one that just gets me the most. It's just like I just don't understand. Like I have no sense of community, and I just am like this Ronin loner, basically walking around, and
Yeah.
kind of like what I get at for me. But I definitely have some other stuff going on, for sure. Um, what would you like others to know about you as a person or as an ISTP? What would you like people to know as ISTPs, I guess, in general, that they may not know, or a misconception?
I think, okay, so I'm going to take this in a different direction. It's more like, don't assume what my intentions are, don't assume what my reasons are, don't assume what my motivations are. That's kind of where that I would like people to know, because it's not always obvious. You can't always read them. Like I am they're generally shocked when someone can read me and be accurate about it. I'm like, oh wow, like how did you actually see that? That's interesting, because I'm just used to so many people getting it wrong constantly.
What type do you think knows you intrinsically the most? Is there a type, or is it kind of just vary by person and experience? And
I feel like the INFJs see ISTPs the best for some
really,
reason. Yeah.
I think INFJs just know people altogether. Really, they just kind of can navigate through this sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're like,
I've had a couple of ENFPs make good guesses, but they're generally really bad at understanding what we're doing. We're like an alien to them as well. Yeah.
INFJs are just naturally become in like therapists and things like that. So they're pretty interesting.
Yeah. And also they're using our same top four functions, just in a different order.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like they can see and appreciate what we're doing, and we can see and appreciate what they're doing, because because it's just the opposite functions. It's yeah.
Yeah, even for me, they're the ones that can kind of read through me and see through me. Other types really, they can't read my poker face, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
They just kind of know it. Like, how'd you know that? It's weird.
Right.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to know about INTJs, or any kind of questions you had about them? I'm sure you interviewed a lot over the years.
Yeah, I haven't interviewed a lot. I have not interviewed you yet, so we could do that, set that up at some point.
For sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, like the BB model is definitely something that I like. I definitely know about it, but it's not something that I'm all in on. Just because the archetype, like I see the use of archetypes, but it's archetypes are a very not a sensory way of looking at things.
Hmm.
It's a very NF way of looking at the way functions work, putting like a story to them, some kind of archetypical way of looking at them. So it's definitely foreign to me. It's not a way that I would personally like to learn typology as an ISTP, if that makes sense.
How do you navigate it exactly as an ISTP?
Um,
I mean, is it just kind of like,
so here's where I'm at on typology. So, like, let's just take SE for example. You could take all of the heights of people, like any kind of trait. You can take their heights, put them on the spectrum, and see, okay, there's a Gaussian curve of the heights of men, a Gaussian curve of the heights of women. You can do that with weight. You could do that with like temperatures over the year. Like you can find some kind of dichotomy of like a positive and a negative and see some kind of distribution, right? And so typology is trying to do that with like psychology, with some kind of psychological traits. And then Jungian typology in specific is going down to the quantum level, where it's like it's either this or that. There is no middle ground. There is no spectrum here. There's just like one or the other. And that's the resolution Jungian typology is claiming, at least, that it's getting down to. And so that's more how I'm seeing it, less as archetypes and more as like bin- like a binary way of operating and functioning, right? And how quickly do you go between these two binary sides? More like an engineering way of looking at it too.
yeah, so just more grounded? I can see that.
Yeah,
All right.
less like giving a personality to a function. Like, oh, it's a hero. Yeah, it's a trickster. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I just kind of naturally see it that way. Like a lot of people say you can't type with shadow functions, but I can kind of see how they manifest, and I kind of match it up with what's mirrored in their ego, I guess.
right.
All right. Well, I think that's all that I have for you. Do you have any questions or last thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me on. And I guess your YouTube channel is kind of new, but good luck with that.
Yeah, it's
And yeah, maybe you can sort of share how how SE has been something that causes you a lot of pain in your life.
well, I grew up, most of my family were SE Doms, so it was like very like, why are you sitting here just staring at a wall thinking all day or reading encyclopedias? and kind of like, why can't you be normal? Why can't you go out and work on this car? Or they were trying to get me to do very high SE things, and I was kind of like, just not really my interest. And
Right.
like I have very poor hand-eye coordination. Well, I used to. Like I couldn't like work on a car to save my life, but I kind of just started working on cars and stuff with my ESTP uncle, and that kind of helped develop it. And it's just very like I just don't want. I'm very self-conscious about giving people like a bad experience or looking funny and things like that. When I didn't send you the little outline like that, like, oh, like I felt all like, shame on you, pretty much, sort of thing.
No.
And it kind of bounces off with the FI and the S, or the FE and the SI and the shadow. Kind of like I have no clue how I'm making people feel or how I'm coming off, so it just bounces off, because I kind of see like the functions used as like a guitar, like you're playing like a chord, and it could sound beautiful or it could sound like crap, basically. Kind of how I guess I see that. So I think the judo, and I recently had a job as a case manager for a behavioral health organization for kids, and with the pandemic, we went remote. So I just got really comfortable talking in front of people in camera. So like, oh, I might as well take it a step further and kind of get over that insecurity, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Why would you say it's an insecurity? What, like, because normally INTJs are more insecure about the SE rather than the FE, right? So why would you say that your insecurity is more around people?
Well, due to my upbringing, I developed in clinical psychology something called avoidant personality disorder.
Okay.
Basically, it's like you feel this deep shame of social interaction, and you feel less, you feel subhuman due to like kind of just neglect and abuse growing up, usually. And there's a genetic component to it. I, I think IN, INTs in general, they're very prone to getting this and what's called schizoid personality disorder, which I kind of feel like I'm going into. They're both like very asocial and they don't socialize, and but for different reasons. Like the schizoid, they're kind of like, I just have no interest in it. I'm kind of like going that way, and I'm trying to like, I don't want to be like this hermit isolated, because I have a 5-year-old son and I try to give him the best life I can. So
Yeah.
I think I'm just a little bit more self-conscious about people and stuff, because I'm basically like, I just can't function in society. Basically, it's pretty hard. And now that I'm getting middle age, I'm kind of getting out of that sort of thing. And
Right.
but I kind of see myself going in either the other spectrum, to the schizoid, and I'm trying to prevent that. And that makes sense.
Yeah. I wonder if that's an intuitive thing, that side. It's just too much intuition or something.
Yeah, I think, like getting stuck in analysis paralysis, like my NE kind of works against me with the opposing personality. Like I can see all these possibilities, and I'm very like paranoid. I think INTJs can be very paranoid and distrusting of people, and I think that kind of furthered it. And I worked in corrections too, and I was kind of like
Yeah.
an environment where everybody's out to get you. Everybody here is a felon, so don't trust anybody. And I did that for 5 years, and I think that's kind of solidified that, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that. It like the based on the spectrum of people you're interacting with, you might project that onto the entire population, even though you just have like a subset of the entire population. I see that a lot with people, especially pretty women, like pretty ladies who just get simped on all day. They kind of get the worst of the men, and so when they do run into someone who's not like that, it's hard for them to believe that they're real or they exist, because like that's the population they're exposed to, right? They're exposed to kind of the worst of us in a way, right? So I mean, I can see that if you had to work in corrections and be exposed to like this type of person constantly, you would see like just the darker side of people at all times and maybe think everyone was like that in some way.
Yeah, and just kind of my upbringing. I don't want to make it like a pity party or anything like that.
Right.
And I worked with kids like in the system here, like with like it's DCS, but they call it, it's known as CPS. And
Hmm.
I just seen so many horrible things happen, like that people did to children and stuff like that. And right now I'm working in a
Yeah.
behavioral health hospital, and it's similar. Like all these people are here because people made them that way, more or less. Some
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
just born like that, and you can argue that, but people do some heinous things.
Yeah, I get that now that you're a father too. Like you got to be careful what you do with your kid, and like, yes, and you have all of that background of people doing horrible things to kids. It's going to be really hard to trust anyone with your son. Yeah.
Yeah, and I try to give him that freedom. Then like at the same time, like I'll like let him wander around the park alone, and I could just like think like someone can just abduct him anytime, and I'll never see him again. That's a possibility, you know.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No, man. Yeah, reach out to me again. We can chat or sometime or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Good to
sure.
get to know you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you for doing this, and I'd like everybody to remind, because I forget to do it at the beginning of the video for some reason, to like, share, subscribe. So if you're still watching, I really appreciate that. This podcast is now on major podcasting platforms such as Spotify, and I'm working to get it on Apple, running into some hindrances there. But I think if you're going to be on a clickbait, have a great day.